Ladies and gentlemen, how are we? Welcome back to the Never Wrong, Maybe Right podcast and YouTube show. I know what you're gonna say. It has been a while, and believe me, I understand that. And I am sorry about that. Had a couple things going on with school and other stuff, but ready to get back into it. As we all know, today is February 7th. Big day coming up, the NFL Super Bowl, Super Bowl Sunday between the Niners and Chiefs in Vegas this weekend. That'll be one of the main topics of our show. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a couple basketball things as well. We're at the trade deadline basically coming up in about 24 hours or so, give or take. And then a new proposed MLB rule that I'm kind of contemplating that I would love to see take place, that caters to a certain selection of fans. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. I want to pull this up real quick. That way I'm correct. The Chiefs are playing the Niners in Vegas this weekend. And before I get to my prediction, I'll just briefly talk about the conference championships, what happened there. We had the Ravens and Chiefs play, and then the Niners and Lions. In the first game, the Chiefs, their offense was cooking in the first half. It almost looked like they were borderline unstoppable in the first half, if we're being honest. Two touchdown drives right away to start the game. Get a field goal later. It was scoreless in the second half, but like always, that Steve Spagnuolo defense once again shuts down the opponent, held the Dolphins to, I believe was it 12 points that the Dolphins were held to? How many points did the Dolphins to? The Dolphins were held to seven. Sorry, seven. One Tyreek Hill deep touchdown. The Bills held to 24, a couple key turnovers they forced. And then 10 for the Ravens, three turnovers. A Lamar Jackson pick in the end zone, a Zay Flowers fumble at the 1 yard line, and then a strip sack in the first half. Now, the 49ers have not looked as good as they looked and as dominant as they looked throughout the regular season. I think that's pretty apparent. Escaping the Lions after being down 24-7 in the first half at halftime yesterday or last week. And then you go to the divisional round, losing to the Packers, have to come back late in that game as well. So what is the confidence level, right? Brock Purdy has had his up and down moments so far, had a horrible pick against the Lions the other day, had what should have been a terrible pick in the Packers game as well. So, but then again, you also have to point out while we're critiquing Brock Purdy in that aspect, you have to praise the man as well, right? Leads a game-winning fourth quarter to come from behind drive against the Packers, right, late in the fourth. Also leads a 17-point comeback for against the Lions last week, right? So you have to put credit where credit is due, right? And so one thing I would like to see more of in the Super Bowl is more Brandon Ayuk involvement. The last two games, he has been particularly not ineffective, just not used to the degree we saw throughout the regular season, right? And I mean, it's not even that, it's also the opportunities, right? Only 6 targets against the Packers, only 8 against the Lions in a game where they were throwing majority of the second half because they were down. I would like to see that higher. 3 catches in both games, no more than 68 yards, where he had one, two, three, four, five, six, 700-yard games, and he's putting up 32 and 68 yards respectively in both games. Did have the one score against the Lions. Would like to see that upped a bit in this upcoming game, give him a better chance after what will be a solid Chiefs defense, as we all know, with Chris Jones leading the way. That'll be important to notice. And for the Chiefs, I think it'll be important to get the run game going. Having a balanced attack against the 49ers pass rush that has not quite been there the last couple games, I think will really play into their hand and help them out for a balanced offensive attack, right? So I am also surprised that the line is +1.5 for the Chiefs. I'd argue they're the better team. They've looked better in the postseason in both games. They have the better quarterback. They have the best player on the field. Um, so I almost question that a little bit, I will say. But I do pick the Chiefs in this game. I pick the Chiefs to win in this game. I'd argue by 10. I'd argue by 10. I almost see a 34-24 type game coming in. I think this is the best defense the Niners will have played in a while, and I don't know if they'll be ready for it, per se. And I think the Chiefs have been playing quality opponents the whole postseason, and they'll be ready for it. So that's what I got on the Super Bowl. I want to move along to the NBA with the. Let me pull this up real quick. The kind of changing of the guard um, or so to speak, with the NBA as a whole, right? You have the Knicks, who let's give them their credit, have been absolutely dominating, are up to the 4 seed right now, tied for the 3 seed, and a half game back of the 2 seed in the entire Eastern Conference. You have the Bucks getting rid of AJ Griffin. I'd argue it was some sort of lack of respect, issues with him because they were dominating with him. They're 1-4 with Doc Rivers. So you wonder what the true issue was behind the scenes. I don't know if that's something that Give Vision will come out in some sort of podcast, 20 years from now, 10 years from now from AJ Griffin, or at his next gig or whatever, if he gets another opportunity per se. And then as we all know, the Celtics have been coasting the entire season. Embiid just tore his, well, I don't know if he actually tore it. The report never came out what exactly he did. He's getting surgery to repair whatever happened to his knee. The report was meniscus, but that like got refuted a bit. So we don't really know exactly what's going on. Long story short, he is getting whatever happened repaired shortly. Um, and then going to the West, the Clippers have been absolutely dominating, 28-5 in their last 33 games, just killing it after starting 0-6 with Harden, I believe. Thunder and T-Wolves kind of coasting. There's actually 4 teams tied for the 1 seed right now in the West. Kind of those four. You have a group of 3 teams: Kings, Suns, Pelicans, fighting for those 5 and 6 spot. And then a couple play-in teams. And then you have the big guns, Lakers and Warriors, who have just been atrocious, respectively, this entire season. Combination of injuries, lack of play from certain players, right? D'Lo struggled for a lot of the portion of the early year. Austin Rivers wasn't as effective to start the year as well. And then obviously with LeBron, you're going to have him out here and there for a variety of reasons. Just, if we're being honest, mostly rest, but variety of reasons. For the Warriors, you got Klay Thompson, acting more like Clank Thompson. You got Draymond Green suspended for what feels like half the year, if we're being honest. Chris Paul's hand injury. Gary Payton's been injured twice. And Andrew Wiggins has been borderline the worst player in the NBA. Factoring that in the last month, we saw some surges from Jonathan Kuminga and D'Angelo Russell, which has been big. Giving the Warriors a second option. These are 2 players that we thought might be on the trade block in Russell and Kuminga heading to the trade deadline, thinking, oh, could these 2 teams get a star piece in return for X player, right? And whatnot. But I'd argue that with how well they've played with Russell and Kuminga respectively over the past month or so, there is not really a better player on the market available for in exchange for them, to give them a better chance to win. And given that they're already a not 9 and 11 teams respectively, how much of a difference would it even make? They're both, the Lakers are 4 games back, no, 3 games back, 3.5 games back of the 6 seed. The Warriors are 6 back of the 6 seed. Like, what is it? How worth it is it to make the play-in or maybe sneak into the top 6 at the expense of trading one of those guys? I don't know necessarily. That's up for the teams to decide. And this is brought to my attention. I think it's a good point that moving forward, and we've seen this kind of the last couple of years. How many, with free agency dying, it is super important to keep your guys and build through the draft, right? There's the new free agency, I would almost argue, is more trades. That's what free agency to me is. Because if you draft a young star, and we're talking all NBA type player who's on his rookie contract, you are going to extend him after year 3. That's just how it is. Because likely your team sucks or is not very good, and you have the cap space to give him that max extension. So you'll sign him after year 3, and then you'll move on. And then you have to go through the draft, right? We remember, we go back to 2019 with that unbelievable free agency class: Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, Al Horford, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, DeAndre Jordan, even, although he kind of sucked, but DeAndre Jordan was in that mix. We go back to all these guys and how incredible that free agency was. I'm probably missing some guys. Tobias Harris was a free agent that year, I know. Who else was a free agent? Did I say Kawhi Leonard? I don't know. We saw Paul George get traded that offseason. What else? Was there anyone else a free agent? Off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone else. Huge name. I probably am missing someone, but you get the point on how incredible that free agency class was. And we've just seen it dwindling down ever since. And I kind of believe, or I do believe, that it's so important to build through the draft. We look at a team like the Thunder, stacking draft picks. You draft a guy like Shai Gilgeous, or trade for a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Draft a guy like Chet at number 2. Draft a guy like Giddey at number 6, right? Draft a guy like Jalen Williams in the first round. All these guys, they're building blocks to build what you ultimately want to build as a championship team. And they're sitting there tied for the 1 seed, right? And so is it a situation where, are they a premature 1 seed, kind of like the Kings last year? Where are they more of a regular season team? We'll wait and find that out. We'll see who they play in the the 7-8 or the 1-8, 7-2, 6-3 matchup in that area. But be really interesting to see what happens there. Um, and then one more thing. This is not going to be some super long episode, but I do want to point out this new philosophy I was thinking about with baseball. And I want to preface this by saying this is strictly coming from a person who is an A's fan and someone who feels betrayed by the entire league, by the MLB for a lack of opportunity, a lack of chance to get a star player. And for someone who is I would argue, medium level fan of baseball, I find it hard at times to really focus and watch every 162 game because the A's are so terrible. And I get it, right? In every sport, no matter what the rules are, there's going to be terrible teams. I totally understand that. But it's the lack of trading for star players. And a couple of the rules involved with this. There is no salary cap, but there is a luxury tax penalty in baseball. There's no salary cap. So we see teams like the Dodgers spending incredible amounts of money, right? Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, obviously, Yamamoto. And I get it. Shohei's deal was deferred money. I totally understand that. But here is a couple of proposed things with my issue. The fact that in baseball, you can trade a star player, Mookie Betts, whatever, Juan Soto, all these guys, for prospects. And prospects are guys who may make the MLB. And if they make the MLB, then they might be okay to good, maybe. So the fact that you can trade a star player for a group of guys who may or may not be okay is, to me, the most absurd rule in all of sports. I think that is laughable. That's like trading LeBron James or Steph Curry for, you know, a couple of G League players who might be okay. That's horrendous. And the success rate in MLB is so much lower than NBA that it's for draft picks and whatnot and prospects that it's laughable. I think it's totally unfair. And you notice that all these players are consistently traded to the best teams who are willing to give the guy the big contract. And I get it. If you're not willing to pay a guy a certain amount of contract that he deserves, you have to trade him. I'm not saying you can't trade the player, but I feel like we need to reassess the trade value of players. I don't believe that it's fair that you can have a certain team who's willing to pay money for a player, i.e., the Dodgers, Yankees, Cubs, Red Sox, right? Even the Cardinals to a certain degree in that mix. Primarily those Rangers, even recently, Padres to a degree, who can just, because they're willing to spend the money, trade for a certain player and give up virtually nothing. Now, a player could end up being a stud, right? We saw in the James Shields trade, Tatis ended up being great. There are times where you trade a player and they're great. But when you trade Matt Olson for Shea Langoliers and Christian Pache, and they turn out to be horrendous, you get kind of annoyed, right? When you trade Matt Chapman, or when he was a free agent, actually, but we were unwilling to sign him. But when you trade Sean Murphy for a guy who's next to nothing, again, it kills your soul, right? And so that's the one proposed thing. Another proposed thing I wanted to point out was the thought of international players entering the MLB, making them go into the end of MLB draft. And my way to make this fair was that if you are an international player, say Shohei a couple years ago, or Yamamoto this year, or any other Japanese guy or whatever coming over into the MLB, you have to enter. If you are 18 and above or have played pro baseball, if you have ever played pro baseball in your career, whether that's in a league overseas, wherever you live or wherever you're from, if you played in that professional league, you are considered a pro player. To enter the MLB, then you get an independent arbitrator, like we have for the MLB, determine your value. Okay, let's say you're worth $10 million a year. Okay, you are required, depending on your age, to be offered either a 5-year contract at that average annual value, or be offered a contract through your age 27 year, meaning the cutoff would be February 1st. So if you turn 28, then it's the year before. If you turn 28 on February 2nd, you get through that year. And what that means is that the A's might pick first this year. The A's would get the opportunity to draft Yamamoto or whoever else in the draft. But knowing that he's in the draft, you would be required to pay him. He got 30 a year. You'd be required to pay him 30 a year for 5 years or until he's 27 years old. One of the two. and the player gets to select, okay, I would choose to get till I'm 27. Or if the player is 23 and wants to be a free agent when he's 27, he can do that. Or if he's 18, he gets a 5-year contract, then he's done, or then he's a free agent, whatever you choose. That to me makes it fair. Now, would the A's or Rays or some a couple other teams draft these studs who demand a large amount of money? Probably not. They probably wouldn't. But it gives them the opportunity to draft a player where just being able to being the best team or one of the best teams, at least talent wise, and being able to sign these guys to me does not seem fair. And I think parity is a great thing for sports, and I think that would overall increase the quality. Now, these players might drop to number 10 in the draft because the teams don't want them or whatever. That's totally fine. But I just think that would greatly enhance the product of baseball itself and parity and all that kind of stuff. Oh, I forgot the Phillies are big. Phillies are a big market team too. The Mets, forgot those teams as well. Um, that's kind of one of my big issues is that I feel like there's not a accessible way because who would want to play in Oakland, Tampa Bay, etc., right? Like no one wants to play there. That's horrible. And so with the facilities and everything there, I just don't believe. So I believe that this is a chance to make it so while those teams probably wouldn't draft those players anyway, it gives them a chance to get this type of players, number one. It also makes it so it's still fair for the players who are great and already pros. Now, let's say you are 18 years old. Oh, first of all, you have to be 18 to enter the draft, number one. So if you're 17, too bad. You can't enter the draft. The draft would be like sometime anywhere from December to January. And you, if you're 18 or older and have not played in a pro baseball league, wherever you are from, you get placed on the current rookie scale MLB contracts for high schoolers. That's how it would be scaled. That's how much money. So how much I don't know how much Jackson Holiday got, but you would get something to that degree, and for that many years of service, etc. That's how it would work. Um, and I think that would be a way to generate parity, make it fair for everyone, make it so the good guys overseas don't get screwed over, but it also doesn't screw over the teams and that either. I feel like so. Let me know what you think about that. Welcome back, everyone. I'm sorry it's been a while, but I'm excited to get back into it. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a good one.